Then let me give this time to His Worship the Mayor so that he can give us his remarks.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for coming. Sorry for starting a bit late. It's a full house today. That shows the importance of the master plan. I just want to correct something on the outset. We are not 80% done. That would be anomaly or anomalous in the sense that the master plan has processes within it stages of consultations. So we can't be at this stage when we are consulting be at such a high percentage. Otherwise, there will not be a point in the consultations. I think she meant that our preparations, in terms of our own preparations, the mechanics, as you know, it is equipment that we have to buy, consultants that we have to hire, the questionnaires, computers, diagrams, you know, the nitty-gritties that constitute the process in terms of our own internal process and what we have to get. I think we want to thank you. There are two bases for the master plan. The master plan is something that is put in the Act. It's done under Section 14 of the Regional Town and Country Planning Act, Chapter 29.12 of 1996, as read with Regional Town and Country Planning Master and Local Plans Regulations. It comprises of the report of study and the written statement. So that is the legal framework that we do a master plan under. We then also, what is adding an impetus to this other process or the process that we are currently doing is that there was a call to action that was issued by the President. Under that call to action, certain issues were outlined that all local authorities in the country should have and must comply with. One was that we should have a separate directorate of planning, which should be at the level of director, and we did constitute that, and Mr. Nyabeza is the acting director of that department. So it is now a standalone department as required by the call to action that was issued by the President. And he is there, is very experienced. Most of you who are part of our planning processes have interacted him in one way, form, shape, or other. He is a moving encyclopedia of the planning process in the city and has one of the biggest planning departments within the country, if not the biggest, for all local authorities. So there's got a wealth of experience under them. They've got a directorate that is over, how many planners? 36 planners that are there in that directorate. And all of them have been within the planning division of council for a bit of time. With me here is the chairperson of the planning committee. We've also separated it so that it is a standalone committee of council, so that it looks at the planning processes and the various things that have to be approved. If you look at our minutes as a council, you will notice that the planning committee creates the bulk of our minutes in terms of the things that have to be planned, right from the smallest subdivision to the various plans that we have to have. And the other deadline was that we must finish the master plan by the 30th of June 2024. By finishing, it is the depositing. The consultation will continue. From what I understand, it's not that it will be finished there and then. The consultation in terms of the Act will require, once we hand over to the ministry, will require us to have it published and it will have a process of a further 3 months where it will be open to scrutiny. But what was required was that we have that initial document and that it be filed in terms of the call to action that was issued by the President. The call to action had other deadlines with it. It didn't have that as the deadline. It also had deadlines around issues of the ERP, that is the Enterprise Resource Package, that all local authorities must and should have an efficient enterprise resource package by the 30th of June. We have reinstated an enterprise resource package which will help us in the planning process, which was there, which is BIQ under Quill Associates, and that enterprise resource package is the one that is being used by Bulawayo that we used before. We went into a foray into the wilderness, and it's also being used by Sinwa, and it's working perfectly well. Bulawayo is up to date with its budgets, it's up to date with its audits. And when we had it, we were also up to date with our budgets, and we were also up to date with our audits. And we understand, and we are very confident that now that we have it, we are going to be up to date with our audits as well. So there we have it. For today, we want to focus on the master plan process and the things that we are required to do under that master plan process. Harare is a huge area of contestation. I understand there are areas around service station, around churches, around subdivisions, densification, around buildings, along the corridors, and we've heard about, in the interim, we've heard about 4 plans. Yeah, 4 plans that we have done within the period of the last 3 to 4 years. Maoborain, Enterprise, and we're doing Maobra, and so forth. I think the expert here will explain the other plans. Some were completed, they were deposited, and they are at various stages. And part of it will be to consolidate some of those plans that we have done. Then, of course, we need to look at how Harare has grown. We have a lot of haphazard settlements during the time, the Chombo era and the Kasukuire era and the cooperatives era. There was a lot of, particularly around Harare and crossing into the rural district councils. And one of the issues is how do we plan the Harare metropolis? Where is its boundary? How does it relate to the cities around it? Chitungwiza, Epworth, Rua, Norton, and then the rural district councils who are, for all intents and purposes, managing urban settlements. If you go to Goromonzi, Shimba, Manyame, if you go along Bulawayo Road, it's got Whitecliff, and so forth. And all these rural district councils are planning at the edges of their boundaries and masquerading or pretending that they are in Harare. It's only after the unsuspecting buyer goes on Google Map and suddenly find themselves living in Jimba Rural District Council together with the Parliament. So it is an anomalous situation that we have to rectify and be able to deal with the conflict of boundaries. And this is pressure on our schools, on our clinics, on our roads, and many of our other facilities, and our mass transport systems, our energy issues, our water issues, our health issues, our education issues. This all has added a cocktail of pain and a lot of pain points as far as we are concerned as the residents of Harare. So this process, we hope, and we should be able to deal with that conflict and also deal with the conflict of uses that is also inherent within the set of Harare. My job was to introduce this topic and superintend it. We want to welcome the members that have filled this chamber. We are also welcoming the press, and we are streaming this process live, and we hope to get questions, contributions, and comments from those that are streaming, that are watching us, because a lot were complaining that not all of us will be able to fill or to come to this place because of 1, 2, or 3 other reasons that they might have. For now, I'll give the acting director to be able to do a rundown of the master plan process, where we are, the rationale, and the preparation. We certainly, I saw some press reports, I need to correct that, saying that we have contracted someone for $3 million. We have not done that. Yeah, we have not done that. What we did is that we asked from the department the budget, and they came up with a budget which is in essence was a wish list of what they would require. Some of the things are things that we can provide, other things are things that we can hire, other things are things that we will provide in the due course of our budgetary process and the existence of their department. And yes, there are consultancies that we will engage, but we are engaging them and determining the quantum of the consultancy fees and the length of the consultants itself. So the figure is not as astronomical as it was read in the paper, but undoubtedly it is an expensive exercise. A master plan for a city like Harare, which includes other things, is invariably going to be an expensive exercise. But we are watching the bottom line, and we are careful that we will not pay out what is unnecessary or create commitments that are going to be a burden on the residents and send our budgetary processes already strained off track further than they need to be. So I thought that I would clarify that report and say that it is not true that we have hired things at that astronomical cost. But the nitty details are contained in the presentation that the director is going to give. Over to you, Mr. Nabes.
Once again, good afternoon to you all. What I'm going to do here is to give a brief outline of what constitutes a master plan, so that we have a common understanding. Then I will describe what we've done so far from the day that Council gave us a resolution to do a master plan to date. I will also, at the end of my presentation, present to you the town planning consultants whom we'll be working with in preparing this plan. A master plan basically is a policy statement that sets out what a local planning authority intends to do about the problems that are in its area. It must contain proposals on population, social services, infrastructure, the distribution of that population, the major land uses, and what the local planning authority intends to do by way of proposals in addressing problems that may be existing in a local planning authority area. A master plan is prepared under the provisions of Part 4 of the Regional Town and County Planning Act, with the specific reference to sections 13 to 16 of the Regional Town and County Planning Act, together with the accompanying master plan and local plan regulations. These provisions, they set out all the processes that should be followed before a master plan is adopted by council, before a master plan is put on public exhibition, and before it is submitted to the minister for approval. It's not correct to say that Harare does not have an operative master plan. We have a combination master plan which became operative in 1996. This is a combination master plan which is involving 8 local planning authorities which are adjacent to Harare. It involves not only Chitungwiza, Zvimba, Goromonzi, Mazoe, Nanyame, these Epweth, Rua, these are the 8 local planning authorities that constitute the Harare Combination Master Plan. Initially, our intention was to review the Combination Master Plan as a combination local planning authority. But before the minister sets out a combination local planning authority, there should be resolutions from the local planning authorities that are going to constitute the combination local planning authority. The ministry tried to sort for these resolutions, but they were not forthcoming. The other local planning authorities sort of refused to join Harare to review the local plan or to come up to review the combination master plan or to come up with a new master plan. Hence, we ended up requesting for authority from Council to prepare our own Harare master plan. This authority was granted by full Council on 25 June 2018. Thereafter, we held 2 conferences with stakeholders at Rainbow Towers, where we introduced the master plan and where we advised all stakeholders to contribute towards the preparation of the master plan. But we also proceeded to form thematic groups or thematic areas so that it will be easy for us to carry out studies for our master plan as required by the law. By the way, a master plan comprises of a report of study and a written statement. Because of funding problems, we have not been, the progress has been slow since 2018 until this 1 November 2023, when the President came up with the call to action. That is when the process of preparing our master plan took up a little bit of speed. Council on the 20 February 2024 adopted a resolution to engage consultants. This matter was referred to our procurement, it was referred to PRAS, and from 20 February 2024 up to sometime last week, we were still moving back and forth between Council and PRAS until they allowed us last week to engage consultants. And the consultants that have been approved by PRAS are Studio Africa Private Limited and Arab Zimbabwe. They are a consortium of consultants. But in between, we have been doing work as the Department of Urban Planning Services on the master plan. We have managed to gather information, especially secondary data, on all thematic areas which form the master plan. We have managed to talk to a number of stakeholders. We have done interviews with a number of stakeholders. We have gathered information from websites, from the internet, but this information will not be sufficient to constitute a master plan. The consultant is coming now to give detail to the information that we've gathered. We've since surrendered the information to him. He will give detail to the information in the report of study and then proceed to do the report of the written statement. From maybe tomorrow onwards, there will be a number of people all throughout the world who will be carrying out household surveys, who will be carrying out traffic and transportation studies. And you cannot do a master plan without these studies. So the purpose of this meeting is to to solicit for views from yourselves as stakeholders. We want to hear from you your contributions on matters of population, your contributions on infrastructure, your contributions on airports, your contribution on social services, your contributions on the environment. We are going to give to you the thematic groups that we have come up with, so that each one of us can identify a group where he can contribute or where he can submit his or her contributions. At this juncture, I would want to, with your permission, Your Worship, I would want to present to this meeting, to this house, the planners, the planning consultants that we will be working with. We have a plan development studio, Africa Private Limited in the Arab Zimbabwe. I would want to introduce Ms.
Can you come? Where are you? Yes. Please come so that people can, and also the TV can see the culprit.
The whole team, if the whole team can.
They can stand here. They can't sit on my chair. It will be. I can move. We can move to our chairs. They can.
And as such, we've put up a thematic issue on institutional capacity and institutional development, so that we entrench within the client the ability to, or the functions to implement the master plan. So I want you to be looking on institutional review in terms of our client's capacity to implement the master plan. Next to him is Engineer Ndlovu. Just raise your hand, sir. Wonderful. Engineer Ndlovu heads the Thomas and Company engineering consultancy firm. You will lead the engineering thematic section in terms of the master plan, and with a key focus on bulk infrastructure for the city. When we say bulk infrastructure, we relate to issues around water, delivery, issues around wastewater, computation and projections, issues around roads and infrastructure, issues around energy and so forth. So it's a broad-based team of skill sets within the engineering space and spectrum that will look into that. Next to him is Madame Olivia Pamsoko. She's a GIS specialist. I'm not seeing anyone else at the extreme. I think there's Mr. TC. He's an environmental specialist. There are other environmental specialists in the name of Ms. Jarawaza, in the name of Dr. Tagure, who will lead that environmental thematic section. So that's by and large our constitution and composition in terms of delivering the master plan mandate. If you would take your liberty, Mr. Nyabeze and Your Worship said, we did take the liberty to prepare a short presentation in terms of what it will take to deliver Harare master plan, and in terms of key highlights going forward, so that the residents and the critical stakeholders are aware of the framework in which we are working under this arrangement. If you would indulge me, I would ask for your liberty to just run through the presentation. Also ask my colleagues to take seat. Way of events that will be going to be panning out going forward. We'll speak about the call to action, which is an underlying national program that has given direction to most local authorities in terms of master plan preparation. I will speak about the master plan. I will speak about legislative provisions in terms of master plan preparation. We'll speak to issues of procedure, key milestones, and a roadmap of where we will go from here. Generally, every local authority in Zimbabwe is required in terms of the law, particularly Part 4 of the Regional Town and Country Planning Act, to prepare master plans, as well as local plans. And as it happened over time, if you had seen most of our local authorities, Harare included, they've only had master plans in the 90s, of which the law requires that they be reviewed every 10 to 15 years. And the Harare master plan became operative in 1996, and it was supposed to have been reviewed by 2006. So effectively, Your Worship, from 2006, Harare had not yet an up-to-date master plan. I will speak to what a master plan is and why it's a worrying trend for you us not to have one. So as a result of that, it's not only Harare alone that is having that trend. Quite a number of local authorities in Zimbabwe have not been having master plans since 1980, despite the legal requirement to have this. And with that observation in mind, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, on 1 November 2023, issued out a proclamation called the Call to Action, Blueprint on Service Delivery, expressing worry as to why most local authorities in the country do not have master plans, expressing worry as to the lease of public land, expressing worry as to the sprouting leases along major roads and so forth, expressing worry over issues of revenue collection across all our local authorities. But of particular importance, I want to emphasize item 6 or article 6 of the Call to Action Blueprint on Service Delivery. It requires every local authority to have a master plan by 30 June. His Excellency recognized that there can be no effective management of our local authorities without master plans. He says sound management of this is premised around a master plan. So moving without such, it essentially means that each local authority is surviving each day as it comes, which is quite a worrying trend. You cannot do that when you talk to issues about wealth creation, issues about service delivery, issues about addressing the welfare of your residents. So it's a major issue of worry, and ordinarily master plans will take a long period of time, normally 3 years. But His Excellency, in an emphatic tone, said by 30 June, each local authority in Zimbabwe must have master plans. And the bulk of local authorities in the country have so far prepared their master plans, and they are in their final stages. So we are within this premise which set out an underlying tone in terms of how this process ought to be rolled out. We have a deadline of 30 June, which the ministry has no appetite to change. And us having been appointed in this momentous occasion, we are required to rise to the occasion as a broad-based machinery to deliver this mandate within the shortest possible time. So basically that frames the context in terms of where we find ourselves as your consultant, and how we relate with the residents of Harare and other critical stakeholders. I will speak to what a master plan is. Generally, a master plan is a broad-based policy, but underlying this is statutory in that it sets out a program of works for council for a period of 10 to 20 years. It speaks to issues of service delivery, it speaks to issues to water resource development, it speaks to issues of bulk infrastructure provision, it speaks to land use. It directs it from a point of policy how the city ought to expend its resources over time. So a master plan generally stems from a family of plans. In Zimbabwe, we've got a number of plans in terms of the hierarchy of plans. We have what are called regional plans, master plans, local development plans, subject plans, and schemes, as well as concept plans. Master plan is number 2 in the family of plans. It gives us this overarching framework to focus on how a city or a region ought to develop in space and time. So in terms of the legal provisions, it's prepared in terms of Part 4 of the Regional Town and Country Planning Act, as read with the General Master and Local Plan Regulations of 1977. This sets out the framework in terms of procedure, in terms of substance, in terms of form, and in terms of content in preparation of master plans. But we don't operate in a vacuum. This ought to be informed by allied legislation, mainly number 1, the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution, which gives citizens specific rights. And the master plan ought not to outrun various constitutional provisions. It ought to align itself to the provisions of the supreme law of the land. It also speaks to align itself with the Urban Councils Act, which gives certain functions to local authorities. It speaks to the Environmental Management Act, the Public Health Act, among other pieces of legislation, including the Zingo Act, among other considerations. A master plan is about a number of themes that it ought to address, mainly stemming from legal provisions. The Act itself specifies what themes to focus on. So in terms of those themes, the master plan, among them, we will be required to consider the theme of spatial land use. When we say spatial land use, we are saying how our land use is distributed across the city spectrum. Land uses by way of residential areas, by way of industrial areas, by way of institutional uses, and so forth. It also speaks to the environment. It speaks to population demography, general socio-economic profile of the city or of the local authority. It speaks to issues of health. It speaks to issues of real estate markets and economy. That the rationale is that every local authority should entrench an economy in its development. It is quite amiss to have a local authority without a strong economic base. So the master plan should speak to a robust framework in terms of economic development. It speaks to issues of traffic and transportation. Most of our traffic issues in Harare, for example, they are of a regional nature, and for us to address them, we need this macro framework, which is a master plan, which speaks to issues of traffic management from that broader point of view. A master plan will speak about issues of infrastructure, bulk infrastructure in particular, and under this we clump quite a number of issues like water, your sewer, your energy, your roads, and your telecommunications. And if you see with our local authority in particular, we have pressing daunting tasks and challenges in terms of water resource development. There are some residents which have not had water for a very long period of time. So a master plan is the best framework to address water resource development issues and their communication to end users. So it will focus on these themes as well as other emerging themes, issues of security and so forth, will be dealt with within the master plan preparation process. But the procedure is very clear in terms of legal provisions. The acts that I've cited earlier on do frame the procedure that ought to be followed in terms of preparing a master plan. If any of these are followed, then the master plan becomes a null and void. So in this instance, this is the general procedure of master plan preparation. I would highlight here, from here we speak to award of contract, which is the route that Harare has taken, and this is where we are at this stage, where we've been awarded the contract, and we are submitting our inspection report to the client and commencing work studies, which will culminate in a written statement, in a report of study here. And that report of study, it will summarize issues or a profile, a broad-based profile of the city across those various thematic issues that I've alluded to earlier on. Then, upon a comprehensive study and widespread consultations with residents and stakeholders, we will then formulate what is called a written statement, which will outline policy proposals in terms of how the city ought to develop for the next 10 to 15 years. After that, the law requires the master plan to be put on public display, for to be adopted by council, and to be placed on public display for a period of 8 weeks, upon which stakeholders and residents have the right to review the plan, to lodge objections and representations, and have them attended to. Once that period lapses, the master plan, the local authority is required to attend to matters arising by way of resolving objections and representations received, and prepare a brief to the minister for how they've responded to those matters arising. And then lastly, approval. When a master plan is approved, it's not approved by council. It's approved, your worship, by the Minister of Local Government in terms of the act, is the approving authority. The local authority can only resolve to recommend for approval in terms of the law. So once the adoption and publicity is through, the next stage is to recommend to the Minister for approval, and the Minister can make a decision to approve or recommend further action to be done on the master plan. Probably further research if there are areas that is not satisfied with, or he can recommend approval if he so desires that would pan out. So that's once it's approved, the law requires that it be gazetted, and once gazetted, it goes for public display again for a period of 8 weeks. If someone is not happy with the manner in which the master plan has been carried out, they have a right in terms of the law to approach the admin court after the minister has approved the master plan. They can approach the admin court for a review of the process. And if so, the court determines that the procedure was not followed, the court can set aside such a provision or such a master plan. So if there's no such, an operative date will be determined from the date in which the first advert will have come out. So this is the general in terms of general procedure in terms of master plan preparation under a normal process. The process that we find ourselves, mainly due to the call to action itself, which requires us to work within a short space of time, work that would ordinarily span over 2 years, requires that we work under a fast-track process, fast-track but legally compliant. Fast-track does not mean that we are not doing what we are required to do in terms of the law, in terms of stakeholder consultations and so forth, in terms of the content of the data collection exercise itself. It still has to be robust, but fast-track in that we ought to intensify and deploy more people resources so that we deliver the studies in the shortest space of time, and robustly consult stakeholders. As you can see from this Gantt chart, which we developed, According to the call to action blueprint, every local authority was supposed to commence sometime in January and February. And as we've heard, for Harare in particular, the Procurement Regulation Authority of Zimbabwe approved our contracting last week. That is now June, and the deadline is June 10. So it means we are 5 months behind in terms of consummating ourselves to deliver this master plan. There's going to be more work for us ahead and more work for the residents of Harare as we visit your communities, as we visit your neighborhoods. And as you see us interacting us on almost every traffic intersection, undertaking traffic counts and traffic studies. We are going to be deploying at a grand scale so that we satisfy the requirements of the master plan preparation process. Generally, master plan preparation process in terms of rationale is predicated around a scientific process that there ought to be a study. You don't just wake up and plan. You say, this is what I want Harare to be. You study, by way of studying, you speak to residents, you speak to stakeholders, you speak to space users. They give you their contribution in terms of their service challenges, in terms of their day-to-day experiences within the city, in terms of their aspirations of where they want their city to be. Having studied the city in such a manner, and having received all the contributions from residents and critical stakeholders, you analyze that information and come up with what is called a report of study. So the report will be a summary of what stakeholders and residents are providing. Then once you have that, we then plan to say, where do we go from here? Not from our own intents, but from summary of issues that will be arising from that detailed study. So that premise is in general the master plan preparation process. That is predicated around a scientific process that you have to study, plan, analyze, and then plan. So that's what we'll be doing going forward. Then in terms of the minimum requirements of the process, they are specified in terms of the general regulation that I've alluded to earlier on. The general regulations requires us to do a socio-economic study, examining livelihoods, incomes, GDP per capita across the city and so forth, as well as studying environmental issues, issues of land use, issues of infrastructure, issues of demography, issues of resources available to implement the plan. We also look at the council budgets over time in terms of what has been the major expenditure areas for the city, as well as how the city can fund certain proposals of the master plan if they do have that capacity, and how we can grow that capacity in order for them to implement this master plan. So that's basically the summation of content areas of a master plan. Then the framing of our study area. Our study area will look forward to exhaust districts across the city of Harare in terms of all the wards within Harare, as well as districts around Harare in particular. So the law requires us that when you are undertaking a study, there are certain issues of a regional nature which are not confined by administrative boundaries. So we'll look at rolling out studies even outside the boundary of Harare. But first and foremost, we have to exhaust studies within Harare and as well as look at other regional issues. We are aware that there are local authorities that rely on services from the city of Harare in terms of water and so forth. So we'll look at that, and some of the local authorities also serve as dormitory towns to Harare. So we have to look at those regional factors in terms of our studies. Then our key milestones is to come up with a report of study upon in-depth study of the local planning authority's area of jurisdiction. After that, we'll come up with what is called a written statement on all these milestones will be presented to stakeholders across all the city's districts, across all the city's wards. We will be visiting all the suburbs that there is, so that our residents have a chance to direct and inform this process. Then the last deliverable, there is a land use proposals map which will speak to the broader provision in terms of zoning at macro scale in terms of where our residential areas will be, if there are areas of growth where the city will grow, if there are areas of employment creation where our industries will be, and how we can revive them and revamp them. But I won't preempt those. They will come from a consultative process in terms of issues that will gather from the residents. So going forward, we will be rolling out comprehensive mass data collection exercises across the city so that we inform this process, so that it's legally compliant, it's accelerated, we enable our client to meet the 30 June deadline insofar as producing a draft. Let me underline the fact that what is being tabled before His Excellency on the 30th of June is a draft master plan. Successive consultations and further studies will tend to be rolled out post that period, and several stakeholder meetings will still be a requirement as we go forward. We will comply with the requirements of the law, and we will guide our client accordingly in terms of how we are required to pan out this exercise. With that, Your Worship, may I sum my presentation in this manner?
The presentation by the Acting Director of Planning and what Mr. Trimo from Development Studio PVT Ltd was very enlightening. But it seems this process is kind of academic and scientific. The details, what is expected is so much. However, I pray that the scientific studies should not only remain in the science books, but become practical. Why do I say so? I will premise my contribution and my questions on the spatial land use. We have got problems apparently, particularly in the city of Harare or in the urban council of Harare. For example, I was very much illuminated by the presentation of Mr. Trimo, why I was on the waiting list from 2006 up to date, and I have not been issued or allocated a stand for residential purposes. It is because we had no active or updated master plan since then. So this platform is going possibly to resolve the practical problems that we have in this city and in other local authorities. We thank you so much, and we thank you, City of Harare, Your Worship. We thank the Ministry of Local Government and His Excellency. I hope as well this will address the land use issues on school-zoned land, where we have seen people have taken over school-zoned land to become residential land. Secondary schools, they are in short, primary schools are in short, yet they've all become residential areas. Since 2006, when I joined the waiting list, there has been a lot of developments, but there has not been my development also. Notwithstanding, the issue is, what is now the criteria or the implementation part of it on this distribution of land going to be in this master plan? What is the council going to do practically to address these issues? Thank you.
Mr. Harare, thank you very much for your presentation. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to ask what was not mentioned. Judith Urini from Great Luxembourg, we have Harare Wetlands Trust. One of the things that we are concerned about as a city is the situation of the city. Where is the city situated? It's situated on its headwater wetlands. Where we speak about water, we haven't mentioned the water wetland. And in 2021, the government gazetted the ecologically sensitive areas, the wetlands of Harare. I am presuming that these are going to be incorporated into the master plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sochat.
Hi, my name is Jenna Hutchings. I'm a citizen of Harare. I'm a mother as well. We travel to school by bicycle. Our transportation options are very limited in the city of Harare. There are car-centric policies that have been in place since the 1960s, which is colonial time, which planned for a city that was quite segregated. We now have a city that needs to ensure that the most inequitable people who are living in extreme poverty and in high-density areas actually have access to a reliable public transportation system that stands to be accessible as well as equitable. And I think that if you focus you center your design around caregivers, babies, and toddlers in how you design your city, you'll see that it will actually work for everyone. Thank you.
From the call to action, we have pressure on the timeline like you mentioned. Now this then removes the ultimate purpose of the research aspect of this thing. When we cut the timeline because of the call to action, we then make it seem as if this whole thing can be done by an AI. So the reason for research is that it is very important for it to be precise for Harare. If we cut the timeline, we are not really focusing on Harare, we're just doing a master plan.
My question would be, with all the garages, illegal or otherwise, all the 3-story buildings that have gone up, illegal or otherwise, everything that has been done already, with petitions that have come from residents going against them, how are you going to take away all those issues?
Thank you so much. My name is Edmo Sakaronde. I think I've been part of that constituency, obviously, that most of our residents are worried about, the pre-owned car dealers, and also the many SMEs that are in Harare. We are hoping that when you do this master plan, take into consideration that the majority of the people that are now in business after independence are the indigenous people. And if you note, I'm sure that most of the commercial buildings and the industrial areas, the title is in the hands of our SWL, Asians community and the white community. So we are envisaging that you recognize us and you allocate us spaces where we can build businesses for our families, for posterity. Thank you.
Motors Association, in the transport sector. My issue is straightforward. We have seen since 1980 there are a lot of communities that have mushroomed. And as us, those in the public transport, we're having a problem where communities are being developed, but there are no bus stops. And at the end of the day, we get arrested for picking and dropping in designated areas. But the council has not made available the bus stops. And the other issues for the CPD, the population has grown. And the issue of ranks, our ranks, that is, we only have pre-colonial ranks in Harare. Since 1980, I would want to say that there are no new ranks and nothing has been addressed. So I'm very afraid, due to the time frame that the consultants have been given, are they going to address those issues? And also, if there is specific dates for consultations, I think it's good before we leave, so that you give us the dates so that we can diarize, so that we don't miss it. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. This event is meant more to gain insights in terms of issues that you residents and stakeholders would want us to give focus or prominence in the master plan preparation process itself. So by and large, you would want as many comments or submissions as possible, so that for our noting, so that we are guided, rather than requiring our response on these issues. But what I can say is that a master plan generally is a broader framework which really speaks to a residential property, which really speaks to your individual stand. It addresses broad issues in terms of service delivery. We do have areas that do not have water for so many years. The master plan is one that speaks to water resource development and how that capacity can be grown so that every resident of Harare will have access to water. I do appreciate some contributions that are coming in around us coming up with a master plan that promotes equity and social justice. We are guided. So, Your Worship, I would return the floor to stakeholders so that they can give us as many submissions as possible for our noting, so that we are guided, than essentially respond to issues.
That's fine. He's saying that we are noting.
Thank you. My name is Tinashe Gwale. I'm with TTW. My question is basically on the current permit applications. How will this process affect permit applications that we want to submit and that have been submitted?
I am with TTW. Mine is a contribution that we have been updated with the master plan on the electricity transmission and distribution. and we'll be interested in sharing that with the thematic group on bulk infrastructure so that we help the master plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Waste management team. There's a lot of, we are sitting on a time bomb right now with all the residential areas that are...
My name is Henry Mtasa. I've got two suggestions. Number one, there are so many people in Zimbabwe now who would want to work for free as volunteers in this part, in this exercise of preparing a master plan for Harare. I'm one of them. So is it possible for you to get our contacts today and we get yours so that we can work for you for free in all the thematic areas, not in a particular thematic area? And then number two, I'm suggesting again that we have monthly meetings like this one every month here so that we really move together and we come out with a master plan that has got maximum input from the stakeholders. Thank you.
Okay, that's it. In terms of residential area, and can you please consider this with a lot of sensitivity in terms of how...
Hello, my name is Tanaka Marikano. Hello, my name is Tanaka Marikano. I'm a builder, so I was hoping for the... Basically, the point that I want to bring is that I'm hoping for, in the master plan, that you include... Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. So I was hoping that the master plan addresses the building code. Because right now, as it stands, we use the building code from 1977, a time before cell phones existed. And right now, as it exists in other countries, they're able to provide houses at a much cheaper rate. In Kenya, a 3-bedroom modern townhouse costs $67,000 versus what you can get right now in Zimbabwe, where a 3-bedroom townhouse can cost you anywhere from $250,000 to $370,000. So addressing that issue will make a huge impact across the whole country in terms of housing availability, whether it's apartments, townhouses, or whatever someone wants to buy. So I hope that's something that you really consider in your processes, is that we adjust the building code.
Okay, that's it.
Recently, the city over the past few years has given permits for the establishment of new housing schemes in townships, but nothing has been done in connection with what we call development gain, where the people doing those townships or housing schemes, they have to give back to the community. They're just giving a permit to put, say, 2,000 housing units, and nothing, they don't do anything to improve the social fabric, or improve the roads, or improve the schools around that area. Recently, a permit has been given to someone east of Harare. There are going to be 8,000 stands coming up, and the Acturas road at the moment is chock-a-block. Now I wonder how 8,000 stands, 8,000 people are going to be driving into Harare, and the Acturas road is not dualized, it's single in each way. I think something should be done that before any permits are given, conditions to improve the area, like new traffic lights, road extensions, maybe the people should be saying, okay, 10 kilometers you should build a road or dualize a road in that area to make traffic easier, rather than just give them permits and they don't do anything. Greendale and Athlone, there's got permission for densification. That's where most of the cluster housing schemes are. And people are putting in 20, 30, 40 houses on an acre or 2 acres, but nothing is done to improve the road network. No traffic lights, no improvement in water supply system. Can that be in the master plan? I think that should be taken care of. Anyone doing a new project is got to give back to the community.
Okay.
The plan, there must be a timeline, because the infrastructure must go on before the buildings. Otherwise we end up in the mess we are. We have given, we bypassed council and we've given people land to develop on, and they've developed the houses, sold the stands, but done nothing for the infrastructure. I'd like to know how the master plan is going to handle that. The second issue, which is a burning issue with water, for the immediate future we are resting on boreholes. Now I know boreholes come under Zinwa, but we should, as City of Harare, at least know how many boreholes we got here, because there are thousands, and the water level is dropping. I mean, the table in my area is down to 120 meters. And finally, I have one major concern with the whole setup. I'd like to congratulate everyone who's got this far, that since 2018 nothing's happened. Now suddenly we've got to squeeze everything into 2 or 3 months. My issue is this. I have no problem with that so long as we do it. We've got to do it properly. My concern is on the 30th of June, you're handing to the President the draft and you've not consulted the resident. This is a consultation to start, but by the 30th I can guarantee you our word and what we are asking for will not be in that draft. And I'm begging you, because this has happened before, I'm begging you to take note of what the residents want this time. Thank you.
This is the planning committee in the main, and the other councillors and the other directors. You can sit down.